take the two judges that were hearing this case, Judge Matajani as well as Judge Fabricius, to come to the conclusion that there was no reasonable prospect of a different conclusion being reached by a different court, a higher court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, or perhaps even the Constitutional Court, and as such dismissed this application for leave to appeal. I'm now with Brian Molefe's attorney, Barry Faber. Mr. Faber, where to from here for your client?
We're going to deliberate and debate and see where we go from here. I can't tell you with clarity if we're taking it further or not.
Mr. Faber, essentially the basis of your argument was that there was this agreement between the former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe and the board of Eskom that were he to resign.
The pension fund, and there was misunderstandings.
If we could just paint the picture for our viewers back home succinctly, and then I'll give you a chance to comment. Essentially, that Brian Molefe had reached an agreement with the board of Eskom that if he were to resign voluntarily, he would be entitled to a 30 million rand pension payout, even though he had not received, even though he had not.
It was never ever a 30 million rand pension. I don't know where that came from. He was entitled to a pension because he could retire at 30. This was
at 30 or 50?
Sorry, at 50. This was worked out by the pension fund, Eskom, and Mr. Molefe, and that's where the misunderstanding came in. Where the 30 million comes from, the Lord knows.
So essentially, it's now two judgments from the North Gauteng High Court stating that your client's attempts to not only get his job back at Eskom but also fight for his entitlement to this pension have now failed. Do you think that there's any legal grounds for an appeal to a higher court, Supreme Court of Appeal?
My personal opinion, definitely, but I can't talk for Mr. Molefe. Unfortunately, he couldn't be at court, and we will be meeting soon.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Barry Faber, he is the attorney for Brian Molefe, who has, unfortunately for him, lost for a second time in the North Gauteng High Court. The two judges, Fabricius and Matajani, ruling that his application for leave to appeal has been dismissed with costs. Now, the original applicants in this case was the Democratic Alliance. They went up against then Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown and others, including Brian Molefe, to challenge his reinstatement at Eskom in May 2017. The chairperson of the DA Federal Council, James Self, joins us now. And DA, I suppose, feeling vindicated.
Yeah, we're obviously delighted by the judgment. We expected nothing less than that because, in point of fact, this ongoing battle in court is really an abusive process, and that really what now needs to happen is the judgment needs to be given effect to, and we need to put the shameful events behind us. They are reminiscent of the old era of the Guptas, and I think it's now time to move on and close this chapter in our history.
Now, I understand you're not a legal eagle like the ones you had representing you here in court, but your thoughts that Brian Molefe may well fight on, his attorney saying that there's reasonable prospects of petitioning the SCA directly?
Well, doubtless that is his good and great right, but as I said, I would strongly advise him to accept the inevitable, that this was indeed an illegal transaction. How can you be employed by Eskom and be a member of Parliament? I mean, the idea is preposterous, and for that reason, I wouldn't think that the Supreme Court of Appeal would entertain his petition.
All right. Well, the political winds of change continue to blow. Brian Molefe, once upon a time seen by many an analyst and political guru as untouchable and destined for far higher office than he was at Eskom and at Transnet, but now seemingly defeated 2 times in a row. Will he petition the Supreme Court of Appeal directly? That remains to be seen. His attorney saying that he will discuss with his client the next move. But for the moment, the North Gauteng High Court dismissing with costs that leave to appeal application for the January 27th judgment that ruled the attempts to return to his post at Eskom, as well as continue to be entitled to his pension payout, were unlawful.